Hello and welcome to this special replay episode of Your New Puppies podcast. I'm Debbie and I decided to replay this episode, kind of like pull it all the way up to the front because it is an extremely common struggle that you might not know is an extremely common struggle if you're going through it. So the episode is called Behavior Changes as Your Puppy Gets Older. So, we talk a lot about things that you deal with when you have a new puppy. And having a new puppy, a young puppy, is hard. They come in, they hijack your life, you're feeling overwhelmed. You have to figure out your new schedule and, learn all about this new little living, breathing being that's come into your home that has its own wants, thoughts, needs, and feelings, which they let known. What may not be talked about as much, I've talked about it before, but it's not as emphasized, I think, in general, is that as hard as puppyhood is, adolescence is arguably harder. So when I say adolescence, I mean usually between the ages of 5 and 18 months. It can happen a little bit before, it can go on longer, but that's in general where I consider adolescence to be. And this is where we can have a lot of regression, a lot of new behaviors coming up. And I feel like just knowing that that's normal can be such a relief, can make you feel so much better. You didn't do something wrong. There isn't something wrong with your dog. This is just the natural progression of development. And the hardest part is that it happens right when you think you have everything under control. You're like, potty training's good, crate training's good, nipping's gotten better, and now they're barking, they're jumping, they're counter surfing, they're barking in their crate again. All of these things can be happening. So I always want to remind my listeners, my students, my clients of this. So as with most of my episodes, I talk about why it happens, what could be happening, and I give you some generalized practical advice on how to handle it if it is happening. The other thing I have for you is I have relaunched my not so new puppy behavior workshop, which is just a 4-week live workshop. So we meet once a week with me and it's a small group. We talk in detail about all the different behaviors that can be happening. So if you were just looking for some reassurance and some general advice and you're just preparing for what might happen, this episode is for you. Definitely listen to it. But if you currently have a puppy that's between 5 and 18 months, and you're feeling a little frazzled and you would like to get some of that control back that you almost had, then this workshop might be for you, okay? Because no matter what you're going through, we're going to talk about it because I let the students dictate the topics. Everything we talk about is based on your questions. And because everybody there is going through the same thing, not only is that feeling of community and validation there, but anything we talk about is going to be helpful to you because you're all going through the same thing. So if you want to learn more about that, just go to playtimepause.com/workshop. Okay, so without further ado, let's go listen to some behavior changes that may be happening as your puppy gets older.
You are listening to Your New Puppies podcast, starting you and your dog off on the right paw. Here's your host, Debbie Salento.
Hello and welcome to episode 49 of Your New Puppies podcast. I'm Debbie, and today we're going to talk about some things to be prepared for as your puppy gets older. So these are behaviors that can start around adolescence and into their adulthood. So if you have an older puppy, maybe you're already experiencing these. So just like our kids, our puppies are going to go through little bouts of rebelliousness as they get older. It's just part of them growing up growing into maturity. And for some, you can breeze right through this stuff and not even notice. Others, it's almost like a little monster has possessed your sweet, adorable puppy. Now, in general, this can happen around 5 or 6 months, between 9 and 10 months, and then somewhere between 12 and 18 months. And even that timing can vary from puppy to puppy and from dog to dog. But there's a few things going on here. Yes, naturally, as your dog gets older, they're going to start to push some boundaries. And even though they know the rules, they might try to see how much can they get away with. Because sometimes the rules just aren't fun. And the other thing that's also happening that doesn't help is that each of these, think about it, around 5 or 6 months, that's right around where potty training is getting easier. So we start giving them a little bit more freedom. And the more freedom we give them, the more trouble they can get into. Now, I'm not saying don't give them freedom. Right now, I'm just explaining why this can happen, because that's going to help us when we get to how do you handle it. And the same thing can happen around 9 or 10 months. They've learned some of the rules. You're starting to trust them a little bit more, and they're getting more freedom. But where there's more freedom, there's more trouble. And they might learn, hey, I got away with this when they weren't watching. Maybe I can get away with it again. So that combined with their natural defiance is all kind of happening at once. And then again, at like 12 months, 18 months, potty training is solid. You're 100% of the way there. And it's been a while since they've chewed on something. So maybe you get a little lazier about leaving your shoes out. And now they're bigger and they're stronger. So walks might be getting a little bit more stressful. And how you handle these isn't much different than how you would handle them if they were still 3 months old. They're just going to be a little bit more insistent about it. You're going to have to drive up a lot more patience and be a little bit more stubborn. Now, a big reason for this to happen is that their energy level has probably changed, especially around 5 or 6 months. Because for the first few months of a puppy's life, they're growing very quickly. They're discovering new things every single day. So they're getting tired out quickly. So they have these bursts of energy, but they're also sleeping a lot. Right around 5 or 6 months, those bursts of energy are still there, but the naps kind of go away. You're like, oh, all right, this isn't that hard. I'm really good at tiring my puppy out. I got it covered. Now, all of a sudden, their energy needs have changed. And this can also happen at 9, 10 months and at 18 months. So sorry to say, as soon as you've gotten into your rhythm and your schedule, you're going to have to up their exercise. Now, the good news is as they get older, you can add new activities in to help with not only the physical exercise, but with the mental exercise. So 6 months is a good time to go to that obedience class, because then they still have the energy, but they have more of an attention span than, say, when they were younger, to actually sit there and learn in a class for 45 minutes to an hour. And then it gives you an extra activity to do at home when they're feeling a little punchy. And I find that even if you're doing like trick training, like it doesn't even have to be practical stuff like sit and stay, that kind of training where they're learning something new, it focuses them. You can also physically take them for longer walks. And maybe, especially when they get towards a year old, you can take them on hikes, or you can drive with them further because, you trust them not to have an accident in your car. So take advantage of all of those things to up your dog's exercise, both mentally and physically. The other thing to do is revisit those house rules. Chances are there's something that you slacked on a little bit. For example, maybe they were just confined to your kitchen and now you've taken that gate away and they're allowed in the hallway with the bedrooms. All of a sudden, they're insistent on getting on your bed or rummaging through your closet or finding your kid's socks. And it's not necessarily about not giving them that freedom, because eventually you do want them to learn how to be in the house. without it, but that just means you're still going to be supervising because you need to stop and or correct that behavior. Just like if they were a puppy and got hold of a sock that you left in their area. You're still going to be preventing behaviors by not giving them the opportunity, or if they do have the opportunity and they do something they're not supposed to, like jump up on the counter or, again, rummage through your closet, that you're there to then point them to the good behavior, which you've been doing all along, but it doesn't stop. Raising a puppy, training your puppy is an 18-month to 24-month process because it's a little bit of a dance between your dog getting older, your puppy having all of this energy, and you trying to give them a little bit more freedom and reduce your work a little bit. It happens a lot later than most dog owners are prepared for. Before I let you go, I want to quickly talk about that 12 to 18 month range because there are some special things going on there because that is your dog's like teenage years. That's when they're coming into their sexual maturity. So different things can happen. This is when they might start getting protective of the house, like barking at strangers that come in the door. And their relationship with other dogs can change during this time, mainly because they're no longer the natural submissive puppy in the world. They're now becoming an adult and they're trying to figure out where that place is. So this is where they might be quicker to correct another dog if they're annoying them. Instead of going belly up like a puppy does, they might back that dog off. That's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, if that dog's being annoying, they have every right to back them off. But this can be upsetting to a lot of dog owners when they're like, oh, my puppy was all sweet and nice and loved every single dog, and I've been socializing the heck out of them. What happened? Nothing. They're just coming into their maturity. Socializing your dog, your puppy, with other dogs doesn't mean that they're going to love every single dog they come in contact with for the rest of their life. They're just going to know how to appropriately respond to dogs that they like or maybe don't like or is annoying them. So you might notice that they will start correcting the other puppies that they come in contact with. The other thing that can happen is you might discover that your dog isn't a group play dog. It's very common for a dog this age to get kicked out of daycare. And it's so devastating, and I get it, but it's not a bad thing. Just like not every human is meant for the bar scene or a big party scene, not every dog enjoys playing with 20 other dogs. This is also where lack of socialization and lack of training in their earlier months can start to come to light. But I think the important part here is knowing that these moments happen. And you didn't necessarily do anything wrong. Your dog isn't acting bad. Your dog hasn't turned into a bad dog. This is just part of the process. And you go back to the house rules. You go back to stopping inappropriate behaviors and showing them the correct ones. We're still rewarding and praising when they act nicely. It just might take a little extra patience and maybe tightening up on some house rules that we relaxed with. Now, if you are not in this position yet, then this is also a good time to sit back and be like, okay, now that I know what might be happening and might be coming, maybe we want to take a look and decide on some house rules we want to start now. Like maybe you're a little lax about the couch, and eventually you don't want them on the couch. Well, now's the time to start that rule because you might be fighting it in 6 months. So that's why now would be the time to think about what you want your house rules to be. And I always say start with the strictest version of the rule because you can always lessen up later. And that is much easier than making new rules when they're 6 months old, 10 months old, or 18 months old. And that is all I have for you today. If you were enjoying this podcast, you can help me out by rating and reviewing it wherever you're listening to it, and that helps other dog owners find this podcast. If you have a new puppy or you're bringing one home and you'd like to continue training with me, you can check out my online new puppy course at playtimepaws.com/puppy. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be speaking with you soon. Bye for now.